All right, so welcome back to the FitFile podcast. And for those of you on YouTube, we are in a special location today. So we are on Apple campus in their podcast studio. And we just wrapped up with the 2025 Fall Apple event. And I kind of don't know where to start with this one. There's so much to talk about today.
There's a lot today, but on the watch side and non-watch side as well. We got basically refreshes of all three watch categories or watch classifications, however you want to put it, watch product lines. Sure. And then we got other things that tie into the watch side and the fitness side in general, in fact.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, for sure. And so for those of you listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we also publish this podcast on YouTube. So you can switch back between the audio version and the video version where you can actually see this video right now.
Yeah, and I think it's probably notable too that we mentioned this last time. People found this super interesting that everything being filmed here is filmed on iPhones. I'm guessing maybe you can nod back there, iPhone 17s or not iPhone 17s. They're previous iPhones.
they're iPhones, but
they're very fancy iPhones with a lot of stuff around them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So very, very interesting stuff. So as Ray just alluded to there, so we have a lot to talk about. So they refreshed all the Apple Watches, and then there's also some really substantial features surrounding the new AirPods Pro 3s. And we have to, this is something that you definitely want to stick around for because, first of all, they added heart rate monitoring, but there's tons of features that kind of like surround that feature too.
Yeah, absolutely. Both fitness features and non-fitness features that are interesting. And I think there's some tidbits that came out of that kind of had us do a bit of a double take. And then we went back and checked some other things and it was like, oh, wow, there's some new watch features that kind of spilled out as a result of the AirPods features that were not talked about anywhere else in the entire anywhere. Anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So like late breaking things that, definitely you'll hear first, because I'm pretty sure no one else will know they exist except us.
You had to dig deep for sure.
Yep.
For sure. So, all right. So I think let's just start on the watch side of things.
Definitely. Yep.
All right. So should we just go big?
Let's go big or go home.
All right. So Apple Watch Ultra 3. So big news is that there's a new satellite messaging feature with this. And I think the bigger part of this is that this is even different than what Google just announced with their Pixel Watch 4 and what Garmin just announced with their Fenix 8 Pro, is where this is both SOS, messaging, like standard messaging, but also a location sharing feature too.
Yeah, it's similar in some ways to like with Garmin. They do have the ability to do messaging, like plain messaging,
sure,
but it's only within their ecosystem.
Yeah.
Versus this allows you, and we'll dive into it, allows you to spill out beyond that. So like you can do iMessage as well as regular text messages.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of interesting like both limitations and good things too here, right? Like we like region availability, where it works and doesn't work, and so like you could do an entire episode on just comparison between those three. But yeah, let's dive into the three core features, starting off with the Ultra 3 on the satellite side first. Then we'll talk about maybe the other bits after that.
Sure, yeah.
So on the satellite side, you basically have these three core features. Number one being emergency SOS. So, something went horribly wrong. Des got eaten by a bear, and now we got to get him out of the bear country. In that case, you can do that satellite SOS. It goes to Apple's basically emergency response center, and then they will go ahead and coordinate with the local response teams, whoever that may be. That could be getting a helicopter to you. That could be just getting paramedics to you. And it's not necessarily designed for purely deep outdoors, but also, there's lots of cases people have, got a car off a ravine, things like that, and just in a bad pickle.
Yeah, I think that was an interesting stat that I heard on Garmin's InReach devices, that it's actually used quite a bit in vehicles for just like people outside of cell phone range, to, like if they get stranded or something like that.
Exactly. So that's a continuation of the feature that we've seen on Apple's iPhones back a few years ago, and now on the watch side as well. And I think if you look at all three of the platforms in terms of Garmin, Google, and Apple, that's probably the one that's most similar across all three of them, in the sense that things went wrong. You go through a workflow, if you will, on the watch where it helps you identify, what help you need through a user interface that's designed to say, hey, is it me? Is it someone else? Am I injured? Am I sick? What level of broken am I?
Yeah.
And it's all really hyper optimized to get the smallest message out on satellite as possible, and then get that back to people, and you start communicating back and forth.
And this is very similar to the Pixel Watch 4 as well, where this is meant for situations where you can still dial like 911 and actually interact with like an emergency operator. So it's not necessarily tied into like a fall detection. You do do actually have to interact with the
there's
the
a
watch.
manual bit there because we'll talk about how you have to raise your wrist and whatnot
Exactly,
in order to make this happen.
Yep.
So that's feature number one within the satellite realm. The second feature then is the text messaging feature. And so this feature here is allow you to do text messaging, both iMessage as well as SMS message with people that are on effectively your contact list that you know ahead of time. In the case of iMessage, you have to text within the last 30 days to that person in order to be able to ensure that entire channel is encrypted. In the case of SMS messages, you don't technically have to be in the last 30 days, but your phone has to be online somewhere else.
Yeah, that
which
was
is
an interesting little caveat, and I had to like repeat that back in my head to myself a few times.
But I get why. Like if you've ever had a scenario where your phone is like if you have two phones in your account and one of them has cellular on a cellular plan and one doesn't, right? You then have to have the one on the cellular plan to pass the messages through.
Sure.
Because I get that all the time with I have multiple phones and
That's a you problem. I'm pretty.
it is a me problem. But it's something that's I'm actually familiar with how this like concept, right, of having basically one phone do the dirty work effectively be on the network.
But you forgot the most important thing about these text messages.
Yep.
Emojis.
There's emojis.
There's emojis. I mean, that's pretty
critical.
good. Yeah. So the thing that Ray just alluded to earlier is that, there is like a pointing component to this, or basically you have to like, get a satellite signal. So I think this is important to say with these satellite features is that, you do have to first like orient yourself to like get the actual satellite signal, and then you can actually start doing the messaging. So this isn't necessarily like an always on feature either. So you may have a satellite signal like once you get it, and it can persist for a while, but like once those satellites maybe move out of position, or if you move into a position where you don't have that satellite signal anymore, then you have to reinitiate that connection. So it's not like if you text somebody, they'll like text you back, and then if you just like go wander 15 miles away, you'll sometimes get, or at some point you'll get the text back. That's not necessarily the case. You actually have to reinitiate that connection.
Exactly. And we'll talk about LEO and GEO and all that and Iridium differences in just 2 seconds. The third feature, though, being the Find My feature. So in this case, you can send a manual Find My location update via satellite, and you're allowed to send that once every 15 minutes. To be clear, it is not updating automatically every 15 minutes. It is merely you are permitted every 15 minutes to check in via satellite, and you have to do the whole same wrist raise scenario.
Sure.
Which then gets into the satellite technology used here. And this is different than Garmin and Google. So in their case, they're using geo satellites, which are geostationary. They're basically over a given area of the Earth, right? And there's a whole bunch of them. In the case of Garmin and Google, they're using the Skylo network, and it's primarily over the US, a bit of Canada, as well as the majority of Europe, Western Europe, et cetera. Versus Apple is using their existing network, which is LEO satellites, or low Earth orbit satellites, and those are constantly moving over different portions of the Earth. And so there are pros and cons to both of those scenarios. But in the case of the LEO satellites, that means when you do that wrist raise, you're basically tracking a satellite that is slowly moving across the horizon. Versus with Google and Garmin, when you do that, because it's a geostationary satellite, it is stationary above that location on Earth. That means it's basically going to be in the same spot every single time. Now, the downside to the same spot every single time is if the satellite that you need is behind the mountain that's in front of you, you're hosed, right? Versus with the LEO satellites, they're moving. So if the satellite you need is behind the mountain, in 5 minutes, the satellite you need could be above you in a different direction, et cetera. So definitely pros and cons to both of those.
Well, but similar-ish, I guess, to both the Garmin system as well as the Apple system is that this isn't necessarily available everywhere either. Just like, the opposite of like Garmin's InReach system, which uses Iridium, which that's, basically global coverage, where this is only available in certain regions.
Right. So from a region standpoint, it's once again back to the 3 core features. Starting off with the satellite SOS, that's available in 17 regions, the same 17 regions as the iPhone. These will mirror across the board on the iPhone side. So those 17 regions effectively include a whole bunch of Europe, Western Europe primarily, US and Canada, and I think there may be a couple of others on there as well, which then gets the next one, which is text messaging. Text messaging is only 3 locations, US, Canada, and Mexico. That's it. And then finally, there's a Find My location, and that one is 18 different countries, which is essentially the 17 previous countries plus Mexico this time. So Mexico isn't getting the satellite SOS piece.
Got it.
And of course, the reason why those are different is because in the case of the SOS pieces, they have to coordinate that entire chain with a gazillion entities on the ground to figure out how that works. And so that is the most complex of them. Now, the last requirement here is that in order to do that text messaging piece, you have to be on an active local carrier plan in the US, Canada, or Mexico, versus the satellite SOS piece that does not require any active cellular plan. So if you went and bought an Apple Watch Ultra 3 and didn't want to put a cellular plan on it, because it does, of course, come with LTE as a hardware component in that watch, you don't have to, and you can still do satellite SOS, but you can't do text messaging.
And I think that's supposed to be like for up to 2 years at this point, but the pricing after that, it's like who knows at this point.
It's a universal shrug. It was like and it's funny because Google said the same thing, right? Google's like, what happens after that? Shrug / we'll look at Apple sort of thing, right? Like, everyone's looking at Apple going, yeah, well, if they decide to charge eventually, and it's been now 4 years, right? Since the iPhone 14. So iPhone 14, 15, 16, 17.
3 or 4, whatever.
Yeah. Either way, we're past the 2-year marker.
Sure.
And no one's in a hurry because ultimately, like from a satellite SOS standpoint, the press media ROI on that when it goes and saves something. We saw that today in the keynote, right? Literally the opening sequence to this entire presentation was people getting saved through these type of scenarios where they had to use some sort of messaging capability out in a bad spot.
Sure.
And that's a much higher ROI than the cost for what is effectively a handful of incidents in the grand scheme of all the devices out there. But that then takes us
to pricing for competitors.
Competitors, right? So in the elephant in the room here, and I feel like we all saw this coming, right? Was Garmin's InReach pricing for their Phoenix 8 LTE devices that we both have on our wrist right now, just announced last week, and they're charging $799 a month, or $999 I think a month in Europe for that same functionality. And so in Garmin's case, it's the same 3 scenarios of manual updates, emergency SOS, and then basically their messaging within the Messenger app platforms. A little more restricted there, but they're charging well over $100 a year for that feature, and Apple's giving it away for free.
Yeah, I think that's going to be tough. I mean, especially considering the price of the new Garmin devices as well, which are not cheap would be probably
$2,000, right? I mean, for $2,000, you're not giving that for free.
You're okay. $1,300. No, actually, even $1,200.
Right, but I'm saying like if you went and bought the micro LED watch, but that is $2,000.
You're comparing it to the highest one here, though. But no, you need to make it. Let's talk about the $1,200 one. But still, like $1,200 versus $800. That's a lot more still.
Yeah, to me, it's like walking into it's like buying a first class ticket on an airplane, walking into the lounge and being charged for like the crappy orange juice.
No, totally. Right? It's still $1,200, a lot of money for a watch. Yeah, I mean, especially compared to $800. But yeah.
Now, as I said, we won't get too far off the Apple side. But I said in my review then, or whatever it was then, is that I would be fair. I'd be fine with Garmin saying, hey, we're going to charge for the text messaging piece and we're going to charge for the non-emergency pieces, and then giving the emergency piece for free.
Absolutely.
To me, I am actually all right with that arrangement, if you will. I think that would be totally fair.
Oh, yeah.
So I do wonder, though, if some of that is technological driven, because of how complex that setup was. If like from a device standpoint, they just bundled that entire activation hardware stack behind the scenes together.
Sure. Yeah.
Anyways, it is super cool to see Apple did this for free. And before we talk about the rest of the Ultra 3 features, notably did this for the same price, right? Still $799. Another example of other companies raising prices.
Well, and this is going to be a recurring theme actually through this podcast, is that the pricing of all these products is actually remaining the same, which for some of these updates, it's kind of a big deal, especially considering the fact that almost everything is increasing in price these days when it comes to technology. Well, and to everything else too, I guess. So yeah. Anyways, done with satellite?
I think so.
Okay. So let's move on to some of the more like aesthetic things, I guess you could say. So with the Ultra 3, so they've increased the display size by about 4%. So it's going to be their largest display yet.
I did the math, by the way. When I was doing my video.
Oh, you did?
It's almost exactly 5% on the dot. But it's by pixel square square meters, basically square millimeters.
Okay.
So like there's not even a listing for how big the display is in inches on the spec site. It's just simply here's the total pixel millimeter squared, which is like
well, I've seen those specs before. I'm just like, what? Like this doesn't translate to
doesn't translate to anything.
Humans, you
know?
No. Yeah, exactly.
Probably because they know it would have been bad to be like it's 1.8 inches to 1.82 inches, right?
Yeah,
or whatever
exactly.
it is. It just wouldn't look so good.
Totally. So, but the other upgrades with this display is that this is a new wide angle OLED screen. So this is going to be, I think, similar to last year's Series 10 too. That had a little bit of wide angle action going on with it too, and similar as well to the new Phoenix 8 Pro Micro LED, which has really good off angle visibility as well. And then lastly, there's also the LTPO3 technology inside with like the higher refresh rates.
Right. I will say on the wide angle bit, inside when I looked at it, side by side with the Ultra 2, could barely tell the difference.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Like it was almost indistinguishable.
Well, and I guess,
but again, that could also be depending on what scenario we're in, right? That could be a difference when you're looking outside versus inside. This was inside and just kind of a well-lit, I mean, the area that you're seeing right now in this B-roll we may or may not put on the screen, just super cleanly well-lit area versus outside, maybe we would see those differences better.
Well, and something to note here too is that it still has the same display brightness as before.
Exact same.
So, you know, I think wide angle with increased brightness, you may see that kind of off angle a little bit better, but you know, it is the same brightness. So maybe the other huge compelling thing is that the Ultra 3 also gets longer battery life at up to 42 hours, up from the 36 hours from before, and not quite 2 days, but here's the thing, like with my Ultras that I've had before, they've lasted me right around 2 days. So for my kind of use case, and I don't play around with my watch a ton, but I still do a lot of workouts though. But still for me, like mine lasted about 2 days. So I think for maybe my kind of use case, I may be able to get more than 2 days out of it now.
Yeah, they did slightly update the workout numbers. So low power mode actually remained the same at 72 hours overall. But GPS LTE went from 12 hours to 14 hours. And then GPS low power mode went from 17 hours to 20 hours. So some nice little increases across the board there, which is the theme that we'll talk about when we get to the Series 11 as well.
The Series 11, for sure. So, so let's see. I think that's all the
last hardware is 5G.
Oh yeah, 5G. All right, yeah, totally. Sorry, I had that in my Series 11 notes, but yeah, go ahead.
They just added it.
5G. All right, so basically this is supposed to have, this is more throughput than before. It's supposed to have better power efficiency and then also more availability, like bigger coverage.
Yeah, I think the big win here really is actually probably on the battery life gains from the 5G versus the LTE prior. I don't think that there's that many people that really are caring about piping a ton of data to their watch per se. This is about the other side of that.
I mean, I don't know. Like a lot of people actually do just like carry a watch around sometimes and do rely on like, I don't know, music streaming and whatnot too.
Just one watch?
Huh?
Just one watch?
I know. Just like weird with one watch, right? Yeah. All right. So, Ultra 3.
I think we're done. Yeah.
All right.
Now, before we talk about Series 11, we do need to talk about the sponsor of today's podcast, which is Precision Fuel and Hydration. So both myself and my wife, as well as pro sports teams, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, Tour de France, both the men's and the women's side, use this to keep their fueling going throughout long events. Sort of like our endurance today. We should have been fueling all day long. But
we were fueling because Apple has really good cookies, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think the cookies are part of the sponsored read.
No, anyways, but Precision's really good. Yeah,
they are good. So as far as Precision goes, one of the things that Precision offers is the ability to talk to their sports scientists to help you figure out your fueling needs. And so you can have a literally 20, 30-minute Zoom call if you want to with them. They're going to talk through your particular event, whether it's UTMB or it's a cycling event or a running event, doesn't really matter. They'll help you figure out what products fit for you to get through that particular event. Of course, you can also use their on-site planner as well. If you don't want to talk to someone, you can do the same thing on their site and kind of figure out what your particular needs are. Now, their products, probably one of the things I appreciate most about them is the fact they're actually edible. They taste decent. Even if you're 12 to 14 hours into an event, it's easy to consume those. Now, all their products are Informed Sports certified, vegan, all 2-to-1 glucose, fructose, and contain no artificial ingredients. You can visit the link below to save 15% off your first order. Thanks again to Precision Fuel and Hydration for sponsoring this episode. So, Series 11.
It's kind of weird. Like, you may think that we would start out with the Series or the SE3, then the Series 11, then the Ultra 3, but SE3, there's a good story here with SE3. Totally. So anyways, Series 11. hardware side of things. So they've added a new ceramic coated Ion X like display panel or lens on here, which is supposed to be twice as scratch resistant, which I don't know, for people as clumsy as me, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, I've managed not to scratch my previous one, but yeah, I appreciate twice of anything. So that's all good.
All right. And Series 11 also gets 5G, just like the Ultra 3. And, to be clear, too, is that there is still a Wi-Fi only model and then the 5G model as well. So it's not like all of them get 5G. But I think the bigger story, and this is going to be the same as the Ultra 3, by the way, is that the Series 11 and the Ultra 3 get some features surrounding health, which are pretty big, I think. So basically, it's surrounding high blood pressure where they can alert you to possible signs of hypertension.
Correct. Yeah. So hypertension is simply just a really fancy way of saying high blood pressure. Yeah. But the key difference here is they're not directly measuring, or at least not showing you, your blood pressure number. So this is not a direct replacement for a blood pressure monitor / cuff, but this will be a FDA and other regulatorily approved device. It's a software as a medical device, if you will. And so that's something that they're expecting that approval this month. Generally speaking, if we know the pattern on this, it's probably like next week is the way this usually works. Sure. And once they have that, they're saying it's going to be 150 different regions that will have that approval across the board. And they're following the footsteps of another existing device that does this, hence the 501k pre-clearance side of it. And so this will allow them to give this essentially medical level kind of diagnosis that you may be showing signs of hypertension. And then from there, it'll recommend that you go and buy said blood pressure cuff, which is usually like 30 to 50 bucks is kind of the norm for that. And then you can monitor your blood pressure and actually put those readings morning and night. They have a whole like updated portion of their app now that allows you to pull those readings in there, and then it combines all those readings with its own readings and then spits out a report for your doctor, PDF report. Now, notably, this entire hypertension notification piece won't happen until you've worn the watch for 30 days. And then within that 30 days, you have to, wear it for 14 of those 30 days during the day. It doesn't at all care about what happens at night. This is purely a daytime thing.
Now, is diagnosis the right term, though, that you just used? Because you have to you just certainly have to be really careful with these terms. So this is supposed to give you alerts of possible hypertension. I mean, yeah. So again, it's like no actual like diagnosis of a condition or anything like that. It's just like, all right, well, we noticed some things that look to be signs of high blood pressure.
Exactly. Yeah. It is interesting though, because we're trying to get clarification from Apple on what precisely this device is classified as in terms of what device category within the 501k platform. Like what is the name category of this device? Because they're following an existing device. We will know that either whether Apple tells us directly or when we see the FDA filings in the next whatever week or two.
Sure.
In that case, we'll see all the details. That's the cool part about the FDA. You can see all this stuff in complete transparency, including the study. They had a study with 2,000 people that they did as part of this participant study. And this is based on, prior to that, a study of 100,000 people they had feeding their data into Apple's larger health study. And then from there, they had a 2,000 person like actual medical level study they did that's then used to feed the FDA approval process.
Yeah, no, I mean, but people have been wanting, true like blood pressure readings, but as we can see here, that it's like it's still challenging, I guess, to actually get the readings per se, but there's certainly like a gray area-ish where you can maybe provide insights, but not necessarily make a diagnosis or actually show a number.
Right.
Se. Yeah.
And I think that's notable because if we compare that, there is nothing that Apple does in the medical realm that falls into the like hopes and prayers gray area of approvals that we've seen Whoop do recently,
sure,
right? And we've got an entire episode where we dive deep on this whole thing about Whoop's FDA fiasco and like the giant showdown they're going on there with. And so that might eventually come out, but if it does, that episode does come out, it'll probably provide a really good backstory for this piece here and how different those approaches are, right? Whoop has just gone into this and been like, YOLO, hope it works out, hope we don't go to jail, versus that's not how Apple rolls.
And that's on me, by the way. Like I've had that episode for like 3 weeks and I'm trying to edit it, but you need to tell the sports tech world to stop coming out with devices because
it's been nuts.
It's been bonkers. Now, all right, so
it is a really good episode though. Like we have some super interesting data there based with like we had some experts help us out in the field that are incredibly senior in this realm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super interesting.
So stay tuned. I promise you, it's going to to be like a kind of like back in the future type episode, but it's coming for sure. So no, one more thing about these this hypertension feature is that it isn't just these new Apple Watches actually too either. So this is going to be available on the Series 9, the Series 10, 11, as well as the Ultra 2. And so the reason for this availability is that it takes a combination of both their most recent heart rate sensor along with the S10 chip. So this is why it's not in the SE3, because the SE3 has a previous generation heart rate sensor, but it does still have the S10 chip. So again, it's kind of cool that, and not kind of cool, it's really cool actually that this is going back to previous generation watches. I mean, not all of them, but because it's hardware dependent, but still, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great to see.
Yep. And then just like the Ultra 3, the Series 11 also does get a bump in battery life to now a full 24 hours of battery life. Again, just like the Ultra 2 and the original Ultra for me, I always got like right around 24 hours with my series watches. So
I'm laughing because now we go from all day to all day. Right. So
is it 2 L's to 4 L's now?
Yes.
Okay.
So for those not familiar, Apple's definition of all day is 18 hours. But in this case, they were very insistent on noting it's now 24 hours. This is a true all day tracking. So now the reason for that, and maybe some of the driver behind that, is the enhanced sleep tracking bits there for the sleep score. So now there is a sleep score feature that's going across a bunch of different watches we'll get to in just a second. But that sleep score basically has 3 kind of core components they show on the screen, almost like your activity rings. But behind the scenes, there's actually 4 core components: your sleep duration, so how much you slept, how consistent you are in going to bed at a given time, any interruptions that you had during the night, and how many of them there are, as well as your time and sleep stage. You'll then get the score and a classification along with that. And then you can actually see the components of the score as well, which is handy. So you can see how many points you're getting in each category. That is different than their competitors, which generally speaking, the Aura is better at this, but others are generally kind of very nebulous on how the score is derived.
Black magic.
Totally black magic. But there are pros and cons to black magic, to be fair, right? So in the case of Apple, they're not taking into account HRV, for example, or some of the other metrics that a lot of their competitors are. Apple's is relatively basic compared to what Aura and Whoop and even Garmin and others are doing around sleep scores. So one of the things I always say in reviews around sleep score is I like to just like gut check it each morning and then compare like the 4 or 5 wearable devices I have on at once and be like, yeah, that one was too high, this one was too low, but there's no agreed upon international definition for a sleep score. But I do appreciate Apple at least being open about what those components are, even if I would love maybe more components to be part of that.
Now, unlike the blood pressure features with the Series 11, the sleep score is actually coming to the new SE3. So, and the sleep score feature is also coming to basically any watch that can support Watch OS 26 as well. Right. So again, rolling back quite a ways. And honestly, like sleep score, we've seen that with tons of other devices. So it certainly has taken Apple a while to come out with this feature, but it's there now at least. Yeah. Yep. So I guess that moves on to the SE3 at this point. So with the SE3, so first off, like I talked about earlier, this has their S10 chip inside, which allows it to have a few different features. So you can get like the double tap feature from the wrist. There's also on-device Siri, and then it also has an always-on display, which was always a big differentiating feature between their series watches and their SE watches. So, I mean, I don't know, I thought that was kind of a big feature for this watch.
Yeah, I think to be fair, like I think there was getting a point now where the SE not having always on display was looking pretty odd in the crowd of every other watch company on the planet having it for years. So obviously I appreciate that Apple is keeping the price at $249 and they're adding a lot of features in here. And of course, with the power of Watch OS 26 behind it, there's just so many other features that people are getting in addition to that. So in addition to that, from a hardware standpoint, it's getting the wrist temperature sensing. So that gives retrospective ovulation estimates. It also gets sleep apnea pieces as well. So there are a lot of those pieces that kind of go to the holistic health tracking bit. And when I say holistic, though, I do mean all-day battery life, though, and not all-day battery life. So this is only 18 hours. It's not the full 24 hours. But I think like think both of us found that generally speaking, unless you're doing a crazy long GPS workout, I would get the full 24 hours in most cases on a Series 10, for example. And even the SE2, I would get it as well.
And I think something that I do on pretty much any AMOLED or OLED watch that I have nowadays is like I pretty much turn down the brightness like as much as I can. And even at the lowest brightness settings on most current watches, they're very bright already. And I don't know, I prefer not to have something like blinding me all the time. So I don't know, it helps conserve on battery life. So that's just, something to do as well. However, it does come with a new like quicker charging on this one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Twice as fast. Does 8 hours of usage in 15 minutes.
Yep.
So that's it. I mean, people a lot of times talk about the shower scenario is like perfect, right? You go in the shower, throw your watch on the charger, or you're sitting at your desk, whatever, and by the time you get out, you're good to go.
I mean, for me, I just like an hour of no wrist time too, like in a day. I do. I mean, we're wearing two watches like 364 days a year, probably. So I like my.
The other one day has 4 or 5 watches.
Yeah, exactly. Oh gosh, yeah, exactly. Now I think so. Anyways, we talked about like all of these upgrades, right? But the price is remaining the same at starting at $249 for the Wi-Fi only version, and there is also a 5G version with the SE3 as well. But I mean, $250 for this watch. That's I don't know. I think.
But it's the same with the Series 11, keeping the same price as the past, right? Just like
no, I'm just
Google
saying
did
that.
as well.
I'm just saying that for the SE3 and the features that it does have now, I think that's gonna ruffle some feathers with some competitors. I think
so too. I think it's going to force their hand on things.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
Yep. All right. So last up, and seriously, this is pretty exciting stuff here. So the new AirPods Pro 3. So with these, there's a lot of health features that we'll talk about here in just one second, as well as sports features. But really quick, just talking about like the sound quality in these. So these are supposed to have, kind of all the marketing terms like wider sound stage and, deeper bass and more focus on whatever. But demoing them, and I like really good audio. I noticed the considerable difference from the previous generation. I was kind of blown away, to be honest with you. So, and I think part of that is going to be due to the fact that they redesigned the buds themselves. So they're supposed to be a little bit smaller, so they'll like fit into more people's ears. But they also now have 5 different sets of ear tips. But these ear tips are super interesting to me. So they're actually foam infused silicone. But when I first put them into my ears, they were grippy. It's
it definitely felt different. As one who uses the AirPods 2 Pros,
the regulars,
it was immediate. Like, oh, this is different.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, like, in terms of the actual grippiness of them, I mean, they were there. Trademark. they were really, really good. And then some other things such as like the ANC is supposed to be twice as good as the previous generation. And then I think another interesting note is that they like redesigned the vents on these, so it actually may have better wind cancellation using transparency mode. I haven't been able to test that out, but I'm kind of curious if that's going to be the case. But the thing around the health and fitness side of things, though, is that these also have a built-in heart rate sensor, just like the most recent Powerbeats Pro 2s, or whatever.
Yeah, orange ones.
The orange ones. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I know. So it's interesting. They said this is now the smallest heart rate sensor that Apple's made, so it's even smaller than the one that was in those headphones there.
Okay.
And it is different than those headphones in terms of what's in there, slightly different. I asked like which one would be more accurate, and
you asked a question that they weren't going to answer.
No, they weren't. I'm not sure what the kickers. I'm not sure like what that means though, right? Does that mean
exactly.
like this one is less accurate or the other one's less accurate, or they just who knows? So we will find out. But anyways, so it'd be interesting to test that out. As you and I saw on the previous one, accuracy was mixed, to put it lightly. Like it depended on the scenario. For stationary things, I thought it was generally pretty good. But the moment I started running, it was complete dumpster fire.
Yeah, that was the same results I had. Was that for running, did not get good results out of it. Cycling. Indoor cycling, fine. Outdoor cycling, did not get good results out of it. However, the one thing that I did get really good results out of it was weight training and high-intensity interval training. So both of those activities are notoriously hard for watches to be able to track accurately, just because a watch, funny enough, is actually one of the worst places to measure heart rate, just because there's like a lot of tendons and you're like flexing your wrist and stuff. So having heart rate sensors in the ears is actually a really good place with activities that where you're doing things with your hands.
Yeah. And there's actually probably a good point then to talk about some of the app changes they made with this as well.
And I think this is really the big part.
This is the sleeper.
Yep.
So yeah, basically they've made changes to the Fitness app, not Fitness Plus. That's the paid piece. The Fitness app, which is
there's Fitness Plus integration as well.
It is, yeah. But like this is the free side, if you will.
Sure.
That allows you now to use your headphones directly with the Fitness app to record a workout and see your heart rate and all that kind of goodness there. You can also use a heart rate strap if you want to. You don't have to use these particular headphones. And you can do a couple categories of workouts by default with any headphones, but with the Apple AirPods Pros, then you can expand out to 50 different categories of workouts. And within that, then you can have different goals for those workouts. But the real kicker here is that, and by the way, those goals can also include, does include using Workout Buddy. So, that was limited to the Apple Watch as part of WatchOS 26. That is now just, if you have just phone and just the AirPods Pros, then you're good to go to use Workout Buddy and all the features that come along with it, including, again, the full workout tracking, etc. But if you've got an Apple Watch tied to the account as well, you can now do fully structured workouts basically designed on your phone and then shown on the phone there and linked to the watch.
Well, and I think that was the other interesting piece is that apparently if you use your Apple Watch and these AirPods Pro 3s at the same time, there's like a fusion thing going on, with these workouts. So, like I was alluding to earlier with weight training where, the wrist is not a great place to measure heart rate during that kind of activity. Well, if you're wearing your AirPods Pro 3s and your Apple Watch together during that workout, what it's going to do is look for the highest quality heart rate signal at that time. So what you may notice with weight training and high intensity interval training is that when you start doing an activity and I don't know, you're doing like rowing or like the ski erg or something like that. And if you look at your watch, it sometimes will just say no heart rate on there is because it's not getting a quality signal because something's kind of happening that's interrupting that signal. Well, what it's supposed to do is like do this like fusion thing where it's going to be looking for the highest quality signal and then like fusing all that data for the most accurate heart rate that is being collected on either device into your workout at that point.
On a rolling 5-minute thing, basically.
Sure, yeah.
Which is pretty interesting, right? Like they're not just doing it one time. Kind of vaguely reminds a little bit what Polar's doing with their retrospective heart rate tweaking algorithm. We'll have to see though how this works compared to that in real life. There's a reality to when companies try to get really clever, sometimes things fall apart.
Sure.
So I'm interested to see in this scenario how that works in real life. But yeah, cool stuff there. I think I'm interested in diving into that entire workout planner piece in more detail and seeing how that compared to a few years ago and then how it compares to the watch side and how it compares to some of the competitors as well.
Now, so there's some other features here as well as a lot of Apple Watch-esque features here. So they pick out music from Apple Music to play for particular different workout types. And there's also going to be Workout Buddy, the Workout Buddy feature with this as well. But I don't know, I think that workout tracking in the fitness app is a pretty big deal overall. And, like Ray talked about just a second ago, is that, you can use this with any other heart rate monitor as well. So, it's not just the AirPods Pro 3s here. So I think that's a big addition here and something that I've always, I don't know, I know Garmin's in the business of selling watches. I mean, quite frankly, just like Apple is, but at the same time, it's always something that has been a missing piece for me in the Garmin Connect app is being able to actually track a workout in there. I think this is a really big feature for Apple. And then again, you can also utilize the Fitness Plus workouts there as well for the more guided workouts using your AirPods Pro 3s. So yeah.
Cool.
Sorry, one last thing.
One more thing.
All right. So these are only going to be, the heart rate sensing technology is only going to be available on iPhone at this point. And so this is unlike the Powerbeats Pros where those are available for Android and iPhone. So that is a big differentiating feature between those.
And within iPhone, it still requires the apps use
HealthKit.
The HealthKit SDK for this, which I'd say a lot of apps aren't super thrilled about because it adds a bunch of extra overhead that's just, as we've seen thus far, hasn't been an awesome experience for developers or even end users, to be honest.
Sure.
And so it's kind of a bit of a bummer they're doing that. I wish they would just stick to the standards that exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Well, anyway, and then one last piece, the recurring theme of the day is that these are remaining the same price at $249, and you know that's the thing. It's like there's really a lot of added technology here with that heart rate sensing technology versus the previous generation. So that's a good deal. So I don't know, like Apple events. It's always interesting. It's like you go in, you don't really know what to expect. You know, it's like, you know, there's all the rumors and stuff like that. Like 99% of them don't turn out to be true. But this year there was just a lot of stuff. I thought, like, I was a little, I won't say overwhelmed, but I came out with a lot.
Yeah, I think the general expectation was the satellite pieces.
Sure.
And I think everything else was largely a surprise in some way, shape, or form. Minor surprise or big surprise. Like they're good. I think probably the biggest surprise, if you will, is the fact the pricing stayed the same right across everything.
Yep.
Right? I think that's a time when all their competitors are raising prices, except Google. Google did keep things the same.
Yep.
To have everything be the same is pretty positive, at least within our sphere. I was not paying attention to phone prices, so admittedly, I don't know if things changed there.
Yeah, we were riding our Apple Watch.
That was moving along
at that point. So yeah. Anyways, so this is Techtember week 2, and how's your sleep been?
2 hours and 13 minutes this morning. Thank you very much.
I think I had 4 last night. Yeah.
There were 7 products released today. So in our sphere, not including Apple things. Well, including the 3 watches, but everything else.
Yeah. So anyways, we do have tons of videos on both our YouTube channels and as well as Ray's website, where he's got actual full-on articles as well about all the things that have come out so far this month. But I mean,
next week is just busy.
It's just as busy.
Yep.
Yeah. So anyways, bonkers times. Please look out for that Whoop episode that I promise I'll get that out. But we have so much other stuff to talk about too, and I don't know, we'll play catch up for sure.
Yeah.
So anyways, as a reminder, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and check out Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We basically are available across like all the platforms. And if you do like these episodes, please leave us a review, whether that's Spotify. I'm not sure if you can do that on Apple Podcasts. And then, you know, just go ahead and drop a comment down in the YouTube comments as well. That definitely helps us out, as well as smashing that like button, as they say.
Indeed. Beyond that, we will catch you guys next time.
All right. We're going to go get some sleep.
Yep.
Bye.